Hello, everyone. Good afternoon and welcome back. I hope you enjoyed your coffee break. You had the chance to mingle with like-minded interoperability people over a very strong coffee. So now you are fully awakened and you can follow the next part of the event. Also, a very warm welcome to all those who follow us online. Happy that there are so many of you over there. Hopefully in the room soon some people will also join us from the lobby when we have exhibition that is very interesting. That's probably it's what's keeping some of them there.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Indeed, could be the exhibition, could be the nice weather as well, that some people still are having some sand bath. But we welcome you all, and yeah, my name is Miguel Diez, and I will be moderating this panel together with Monika. Monika, she's the project officer of the Commission Open Source Observatory at the European Commission.
And Miguel is the lead of Open Source Program Office at the Commission, OSPO, but also the leader of Interoperability Enablers team. And since OSOR is part of this team, actually, practically, you are my boss.
Yeah.
So the name of team, the main theme of today's conference is, of course, I'm checking if you are really waking up, interoperability. By that time, it should be clear. Interoperable Europe Act is a dream, a vision that has come true. It has become a reality. With regulation that will shape the future of the European public services in many ways. Let me remind you some of them. You heard a lot about so far, but there are some aspects that will be important for today's, this afternoon session. So the Act, apart from establishing the interoperability governance structure, it prioritizes the use of open source and open standards by public services to ensure compatibility and interoperability. Public administrations are encouraged, and that I think it's clear, to consider open source first during their decision-making processes when they build digital public services. Also, the Act mandates the sharing of best practices, standards, and solutions. Public administration should share information, best practices, should share actually everything what they develop with member states, especially if it's requested by other public administration. And they should share via Interoperable Europe portal or other portals. Also, the Act requires regular monitoring of the use and impact of open source solutions, which actually will have by itself a huge impact of uptake of open source. There is a lot in the Act that promotes sharing and reuse as one of the main means of achieving of interoperability. But we are not starting from scratch. We have a lot that was already done or we are doing now in this respect. And in this session, together with our expert panelists, we would like to see what is out there, what is the reality of cross-border exchange looks like today. We want to take stock of different types of initiatives and projects between member states that either have sharing and reuse of IT solutions in mind, or it becomes kind of a byproduct of those projects and the cross-border cooperation. And in both cases, it leads to better interoperability.
Yeah, definitely. And I agree, we have very interesting stories to hear today, and we will very quickly call our speakers. But before, to the audience and the people, I don't know if the people online will have access to the Slido, but please, I don't know if the barcode will be, scan the barcode. And I think you have to put SEMIC 2024, and you choose the copper whole room, because we will have some questions, very interesting one that will be very interesting food for thought for the discussions we are going to have with our panelists today. So yeah, I think we should start already. So while you are connecting and you are ready to shoot, let's invite our panelist, Monika.
So we would like to invite to the stage Stéphanie Schar, the director of DINUM, la Direction interministérielle du numérique, so Interministerial Digital Directorate, and also CIO, French CIO.
So, yeah, bravo. Then Mrs. Kylie Tam, Chief Digital Officer of the Estonian Ministry of Economic Affairs and Communications. Kylie, welcome.
Also, please welcome Emmanuel Darmanin, Chief Executive Officer of MITA, Malta Information Technology Agency.
And our next panelist is Marcel Colaya, a member of the European Parliament and member of the Czech Pirate Party. Welcome, Marcel.
And last but not least, Ilya Rodin. Please come join us on the stage. Ilya is Chief Solutions Architect and Head of Software Development in Ministry of Digital Transformation of Ukraine. So, welcome and thank you very much for accepting our invitation to join us at today's discussion.
Okay, Monika, shall we go through the first two questions for the Slido?
Yes, so we have Slido. These two first questions are just to remind us what is the topic that we are dealing with. There are some links, so please, you won't see the answers, but we see them, and you see them on their screens, phone screens. So please follow it.
Okay, I hope that the team is ready. In the meantime, I read the question for the panelists. What are the major barriers to sharing and reuse that we have today in public services? You have to choose your top 3. I hope that this is done in that way. So is it because of lack of awareness? That's the first option. Is it because we are not doing what other countries are working on? Is it the language barriers, the multilingualism? Is that a blocking factor? Could it be that we are not using still, despite the efforts, common standards and technologies? Is it the legal and regulatory differences? Are we having still this kind of legal differences between one country and the other? The resistance to change, the cultural mindset, no, my solution is better, why should I look outside? And the lack of a strategic view, the short-term thinking, like, okay, I need to deliver, I don't have time now to look outside, I need to deliver, that's my budget, I go for it. So which of these, I think they are 6 options, choose your top 3. Okay. And this is already in the screens.
So we see 4 participants. You see, you can't hide. We see that 5 are answering. So please join the poll, because we can see how many of you are here working with us.
I'm not surprised about the resistance to change. But okay, it's just the first votes. The legal and regulatory, lack of awareness. How much time we give, Monika, for this?
Still more 30 seconds. It's really about, what comes to your mind first. So please don't spend too much time on this. It's really to see if we are on the same page or maybe we have some different views. So for those that still didn't manage to connect, please do it for the next question. So, okay, we have very split views, but that's the case, that actually there is no single reason for, you cannot say, okay, this is the only barrier. We are asked to choose 3, first of all, to choose 3. But resistant to change, and this indeed appears very often in our discussions on this topic. So yeah. there is a common lack of awareness. What is out there and what could I use and so on. It's also a very common thing. And lack of strategic view, which is interesting because we will be talking about policy a bit in our first round. So I would like to go to the next question already because we have 2.
Let's retain maybe the top 3. Yeah. Oh, okay. We will.
So there are 2. You see, we are not fully aligned with what's going on in Slido. So you were in parallel answering to the second question. That's we are not aware. Pilot projects. Happy to see that because we are going to talk about pilot projects today. And established joint. So it is also a hint for our speakers to see that the audience would like to see policymakers and decision makers and also those that are responsible for developing solutions to think more about cross-border projects and joint initiatives, so collaboration.
And I see that funding, which we always think about the funding, it doesn't seem to be the main issue or the main, let's say, the main measure to promote this. Okay, let's keep it in mind for our interventions. And shall we give more time, Monika? Or
no, I think thank you very much for your participation in this part. And this was just to give food for thought to our speakers, but also to put our minds on track and topic to today's discussion. So now, thank you very much for working a bit with us. Now we have a lot of work for our speakers.
We have the clock ticking, so let's go into the questions. So, and my first question will be for you, Stephanie. Can you tell us a little bit more about DINUM? What is the role in the French government? And at the same time, you know that the Act is promoting open source a lot. It's the preferred choice. I think this is not something strange for the French government. So can you tell us more about the role of DINUM and the role of open source in France?
Thank you for the invitation to this panel. And so DINUM, in fact, is an interministerial directorate in charge of digital services for the public sector. We are a service of the Prime Minister, so we are around and we are coordinating all the work done in the different ministries. And in fact, about 20 months ago, we defined a new strategy for the digital strategy for the French government, and we chose 4 priorities. The first one is, in fact, and we could see that in the first answers, the change of the way we are dealing with the IT project. In fact, in big organizations like a state, we sometimes believe that we have to specify everything and then develop, and it takes a long time, it takes a lot of money also, and it's not easy. Most of the time it's very complex, and at the end it costs more, and we have delay, and more difficult also, we don't have what we expected. In fact, the benefit is not there. And that's why we put as first priority also for state to take agile methods, so as it's used in lean startup methodology, for example, but on a large scale for very huge politics. And this is really an organizational change, and not so easy. So we are now providing coaching in DINUM for those teams that are changing their method. And this is the first priority. The second one is very linked to our panel and our discussion today in SEMIC, is about sovereignty, how a state has the sustainable and have the control of its IT that has to work every time, everywhere, in crisis also, and how we can offer something that is at the same time high quality, interoperable, with accessibility, with security, and everything. And that's why we choose as a model to use for this core IT open source software that we are able to operate by ourselves and secure. And for that, we need also to choose the state-of-the-art open source software. So, and so I think we will come back to that on how we can do that, not only in France, but also with other countries, because behind this open source software, there are digital commons, in fact, that are used on a broader scale as just France. Third priority is the skills. We spoke about that this morning. In fact, for the state digital transformation, we need to have people that exactly know what is AI, cloud computing, agile methodology, and so on, and that inside our organization. And we need those skills, and to be able to have a strategy for human resources. And now in DINUM, we have a department for digital resources for the whole state in digital. This is quite new. Before it was spread between responsibilities, and now we are leading this new politics. And so the first priority is to make the state more simple, more efficient, and more sovereign. We need more exchange of data. we are proud in France to be quite good in open data, because in the scale, in the ranking scale of the EU or OECD, we are the first for open data. But exchanging data in France is still difficult. We are not so good when we saw the same ranking, because there are still some cultural barrier. We did a lot with new laws and regulatories, but in practical, it's still difficult. So that's why we put as a first priority, and we try to do more for activity. That's exactly what the citizens are expecting, and civil public services that are really easy to use, and with all information that the state has already on each citizen, but with a big focus, of course, on privacy. So that's the subject on which we are working just right now in France on digital.
Thank you very much, Stephanie, and thanks for reminding the digital sovereignty aspect. Yeah. So, Monika, I think.
Thank you, thank you, Stephanie. So we stay with policy and strategies for the moment. So I have a question to you, Kylie. First, if you could briefly tell us, because your title it's not that typical, which is Digital Chief Officer in the Ministry of Economic Affairs and Communication. So what is your role exactly? And then a question about the strategies and policies. So similar to what we asked Stephanie, but what it's about importance of reuse. Is it reflected in Estonia's digital agenda for 2030 and Estonian strategy 2035? Because this aspect is actually very much highlighted in the Act. So is it already aligned, or you will have to do something about that?
Yeah, first of all, in the Ministry of Economic Affairs and Communications in Estonia, there is Chief Information Officer's Office, and we have different roles and different teams. There is, for example, Chief Technology Officer, who is responsible for technology and interoperability of different technological things, and also Chief Data Officer, who is responsible for data management and data usage. And then there is me, who is Chief Digital Officer, and I have my own team. And actually we are more focusing on user experience and how really provide user-friendly services and the really best experience in our digital society, because in Estonia 99+% of public services are actually available online, but they are more like technology driven, not so much considered how people who are really using the services are experiencing the services itself. And right now we are more and more focusing on live event-based services and proactive services, so to provide more like seamless government. And yes, the reusing the technology and open source, it's stated in our strategy documents, both in Estonia and also on international level, to be more to provide more interoperability. But actually I have to admit that in Estonia the reuse is not so often. Actually, it's doing better and better, but still, like it was told before, that everybody thinks that I need some very special solution and nobody cannot provide me. But actually, what is also important, we can talk about the open source data, etc., but actually what we really need, we also need tools and network to provide that kind of things. So it's all stated in our strategy documents, and I hope that by 2030 we are more using the solutions that are already there.
So it's not clear if you need to adapt the strategies because of the Interoperability Act. I mean, Estonia is, leader when it comes to digitalization. So and I'm sure that it's already reflected. But yeah, we need to take the stock, what is there, what needs to be done, and then you will maybe look at it. But thank you very much.
Okay, now it's my turn, and Emmanuel, this is a question for you. If, like Stephanie did previously, can you talk about Meta? What is the role in the Maltese government? And we know that Malta has been successful to implement interoperability at local and national level. So tell us, how was that journey? Some example, how it went, and what challenges did you face?
Yes. First of all, thank you for inviting us over. I am the CEO of Meta. Meta is the IT agency for the government of Malta. We are practically responsible for digital policy, projects and services within government. And of course, we're a prime mover for digitalization and interoperability. Yes, I would say that we have been quite successful at interoperability at a local and national level. And I would attribute this to 4 major domains, let's call them. First of all, and I'm seeing it there as the second aspect, we have managed to come forward with a set of standards and policies. And that basically has established a common way for stakeholders involved in digitalization to operate, whether they are implementers, administrators, or users. So that's one important perspective. We have policies relating to enterprise architecture and interoperability, to information security, to centralized enabling services. And as we talk, we're also looking into implementing one that focuses on how to use generative AI at a government level. So this is the first domain, and of course accompanying standards. The second domain is what I call centralized frameworks and operating procedures. What do I mean by this? And to start with, there's the one there, top priority, building pilots. We do a number of proof of concepts, of course on behalf of government, before actually embarking onto the project, which is good. The problem, in my opinion, with pilot projects is to move them then to the production environment. There's always a challenge to move from proof of concept to environment. In this regard, we have a number of processes which are common across the board, like, for example, planning and budgeting for ICT. We do it in collaboration with the ministry CIOs. We submit the priorities and send them to the budget affairs, and then monitor during the following year. We do centralized procurement, whether it's through enterprise agreements with major companies or through dynamic purchasing systems. So government officers can procure the same peripherals, same devices, from same mechanism. And also, for example, when we're submitting proposals for EU funding, such as what we did, for example, for RRF, we try to do it in a consolidated manner, so that prioritizing on what are the key. This is the second aspect. The third aspect is, of course, technology enablers, and in this regard, I would talk about different levels. First of all, having corporate shared facilities, what I call them. So one data center for government, one hybrid cloud, government network, one service call center, security operations center, network operations center. So having shared facilities, and that has, I think, helped us achieve. Another aspect is implementing shared platforms. So for authentication, for workflow, for payments, for notifications, we have centralized platforms and then are used by the different CIOs to build their solutions on top of them. The third aspect is, as much as possible, having the same solutions implemented across government. So one email platform, we're looking into implementing now a centralized document management solution, collaboration environment, which is shared as well. The fourth perspective then is even solutions at a national level, such as, for example, our electronic identity to access the various government online services, such as National Data Portal, Geospatial Portal, electronic procurement, which are shared across. Then the fourth perspective, I would say, is the sharing and reuse of data. We're lucky that for the past 20-25 years we have had shared corporate data repositories and common databases that have provided an element of coherence in terms of the data that is used in line of business solutions. And this is, we did not stop there. We're currently implementing various base registers, and an interoperability platform so that the line of business applications can interface to these base registers and have homogeneity in terms of data. Of course, there's been a number of critical success factors to achieve this. And again, I would categorize this into four. First of all, the political will. We're lucky that for the past 30 years, despite having different governments, we have had, let's say, a homogeneous approach towards implementing digital at a government level. And this, of course, has resulted in a common vision, into a number of strategies at national, at domain-specific level, at government level. So that's the first perspective. The second one is, of course, having supporting structures to be able to implement. And in this regard, we started with a completely centralized approach, whereby the entity, the agency, used to do practically all IT. But as IT, of course, started to become more important and dependency on IT increased, we started to work for a federated approach. So the agency focusing on what is core, strategic, corporate, cutting across, and setting up ministry CIOs to focus on the perspectives which are more vertical. And of course, in doing that, providing the CIOs with technology direction and also providing enablers, as I mentioned before. It's been also important to state that we have set up a number of committees, with the most senior committee being what we call Digitalization Committee, chaired by the head of the public administration, who also happens to be the chairman of MITA. And this committee having a number of supporting structures for data, for cyber, for technology direction, for CIO operations, amongst others. The third pillar is, of course, the legal basis. We have not shied away from putting forward legislation, whether to set up authorities. In fact, when blockchain was, we set up a Digital Innovation Authority, which currently is being modified to take on board additional responsibilities that are coming forward from the Data Governance Act, and also to implement policy direction. When we implemented PSI, the Public Sector Information Reuse, we did not focus just on open data, but also on the sharing of government data. And we established a number of legislative frameworks to be able to implement registers and implement the proper structures. Ultimately, of course, technology. And what I mean by this, I've already spoken about technology, but what I mean is that we implement technology in such a way that is interoperable, scalable, and that the people are trained to implement such solutions in a secure manner, and quality, and to deliver quality.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It was a very comprehensive introduction to situation in Malta and the role of MITA. There was an interesting point you said, despite of political situation, you had this homogeneous approach towards policy when it comes to interoperability or IT issues in general. It was very helpful, and also very interesting point about the governance. And the Act is actually about this homogeneous approach to interoperability and a strong and well-structured governance of interoperability. And now I would like to turn to Marcel. We are happy to have you here because you were involved in the negotiations, or at least follow the negotiation on the Interoperable Europe Act. And since the beginning of your career of MEP, you have been a strong supporter of open source, and thanks to the support of your political party, actually the Commission has been implementing very important initiatives regarding reuse and open source. We will talk about it later, but for the moment I would like to talk about the Act, because its final version adopted by the European Parliament and the Council put stronger emphasis on reuse and open source compared to this original proposal. So you can Google it, what are the differences exactly? But I would like to ask, why was so important to the European lawmakers and representatives of member states in the Council working parties to leverage open source and encourage reuse for achieving digital interoperability across the EU?
Thank you for the question. Well, the short answer would be because most probably everyone has realized that using free and open source software is the most effective and easiest way how to implement interoperability. The longer answer should probably include some explanations why this is the case, and there are several aspects that I would like to mention. First is the cost efficiency. When you build solutions on free and open source software, you can get rid of a lot of redundancy. But of course, even in the free and open source ecosystem, you can unnecessarily do redundant work, which can be avoided, which we will speak about later, I hope, because there are things that need to be done when it comes to that. But at least, when you build something, you can build on top of that, which with proprietary solutions is very often not possible. And also, you can easily avoid vendor lock-in. I mean, imagine you want to build a house, or you build a house, and then after several years you want to change the windows or doors, not to create any relations with specific products, but let's doors. You want to change doors in the house, and the provider of the house who built the house says, well, but you can do it only from us, right? And it costs this and that, and what do you do about that? Then it's not really cost efficient. With open source, you can easily get rid of this vendor lock-in because you can reuse the existing solution, and you are not reliable on one particular vendor. Also, why interoperability is usually easier with free and open source software is that, by definition, free and open source software it builds on standards. The code is publicly available, and different pieces of software can very easily interoperate, which also this transparency builds trust because the code is publicly available and anyone can check what is in the code, which goes hand in hand with more collaboration because anybody can collaborate, which again is very closely linked to the security aspects because such software, if it's open and publicly available, then needs to be secure by design. I'm sure that many of you will remember examples of some previous cases where a piece of software was developed proprietary, and then the company decided to open source it, and they figured out that they actually have a backdoor in it because somebody forgot it in the code. With open source, it's very difficult because then when you publish it, it goes through a public review, and it's very difficult to forget a testing backdoor, for instance, in the software. This also leads to digital sovereignty. I have been asked over the past 5 years so many times about digital sovereignty, what it means for me. Well, for me, it means building solutions on free and open source software, because then you basically own it. And you are not, you do not rely on anyone. And the last thing I would mention is the user empowerment. When the code is publicly available, anyone can develop, counter pieces of software that interoperate with that and create solutions that fit their needs or can, tweak the existing solutions. For instance, also, I think open data already has been mentioned. This is also important when it comes to open data, because I have been asked many times a question when I was active on the communal level. Why do you want to publish this as open data? What purpose does this data serve if the citizens have access to it? And my answer very often was, well, that is not the question we should be asking, because then those who want to use that data will figure out what we can do with that. And oftentimes it happened that we were surprised that they created some very innovative ways how to use open data, and new services were started that enable the use of data. So for all these reasons, I believe that free and open source software is the best way how to implement interoperability.
Thank you very much. I like very much the fact that you mentioned empowerment of citizens, because when we talk about public services and creation of cross-border interoperability, but there is this element that open source and allows citizens to co-create, in a way, services, because if they contribute to even to the code, it's a kind of, they feel also ownership in a way, so it's engaging all actors in this process. So this is a very interesting aspect, so thank you very much for mentioning it.
Okay, Ilya, question for you as Chief Solution Architect and Head of Software at the Ministry of Digital Transformation. You are a more hands-on, you have a better view on the technological matters, which we will learn in the coming questions. For you, the Interoperability Act might look sometimes like an EU thing, but it's clear that since 2 days ago, Ukraine is already in official conversations for membership. Thinking of that scenario, how do you see the Interoperability Act? In which areas do you see an impact for Ukraine?
Yes, thank you for your question. First of all, based on my role, I'm a technical specialist, yes, but even for technical specialist, if you work in GovTech, everything begins from the politics and legislation. Yep. Yeah. Interoperability European Act, it's a very new act, and accordingly was not obligation of Ukraine before. But at the same time, now we as a country candidate, we analyze all EU legislation to understand the way, approach, methods, and deadlines of implementation. I can say in advance that common goals of ACT and our Ministry of Digital Transformation of Ukraine is almost the same. So we both want to push all government public services to online. Ukraine joined to EU digital program in 2022. So if look in the future at after-war period, we want to be focused on economic renew and repairing of our country, and how was mentioned before, economic effectivity of using open sources can be very important in these aspects. At the same time, taking into account the number of Ukrainian refugees in European country, for us is very important to provide mutual recognition of the education documents, medical documents, vehicle documents, some social security information, etc., etc. So that's also a sphere where can be ACT help us. We believe that following the ACT will allow us to be effective, incorporate with EU in all of these areas. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ilya. Okay, first round, very already a lot of substance that we are obtaining from our panelists. I think it's time for a quick Slido just to enter into the next round.
Just to...
can we show it in the screen, and then that will lead us to some other questions. I hope you can scan the barcode, or you are already there.
So you are working in the meantime, because we already see the answers.
Indeed. In what areas do you see more potential for sharing and reuse? Is it the digital identity? Can we reuse a lot there? Is it data management? We have beautiful citizen portal in many countries. Could those portals used in other countries? Cybersecurity, smart cities, artificial intelligence. Are we reusing models from other countries? So I see the digital identity as one of the top 3, then data management. There we were referring about the famous X roads of Europe, no? Transporting data between different ministries and departments. Okay. So I think this is already
this is our result.
Quite stable. I think we can already take it from there. So we stick to those 3 at the top. AI, I thought it was going to be more, there was going to be more potential, but okay. So
now we have a question to Kylie.
Yeah.
And you mentioned X-roads right on time, because my question also relates to that, but more in sense of the governance. So the cooperation between Estonia and Finland on X-road and setting up the Nordic Institute for Interoperability Solutions, NIS, is a well-known and successful example of cross-border collaboration to develop reusable e-government solutions. Do you think that this experience could be especially related to the governance of X-road, because you tested very strong governance there? Can it be used for the interoperability governance created by the Act? And I have the follow-up question then about other examples of cross-border cooperation of similar type or different.
Yeah, actually, one remark, NIS is not only between Estonia and Finland, Iceland is also included, so it's 3 countries cooperation.
Started with 2?
Yeah, started with 2 and now
I need to update myself.
So it's a good example, actually. Yes, but and like it was mentioned that actually it's not reusing the solutions, but actually, yes, our X-road is a shared solution. And what it means that it's not possible that when there is a shared solution between 3 countries, that one country is managing and handling it, because otherwise it won't work. It's not only my opinion, but it's the opinion of my colleagues also, who are very professional on this aspect. And that's why maybe this governing body, what is not from Estonian government, not from Finnish government, not from Iceland's government, but it's a separate body, and that's why it is needed. And actually, when we are talking about Act, then we are more and more talking about reusing, not so much shared solutions, as much I understood. And yeah. But of course, I think that the most important part is that there should be a covering body to really reuse the solutions, because somebody has to be the one who provides up-to-date solutions, because otherwise they won't be. And also cybersecurity maybe is also a very important part. So maybe the model of NIS is not one by one to taken over, but some aspects maybe yes. And yes, we also have some other examples of cooperation on international level. For example, when Ukraine started to also about X-road, when Ukraine started to develop Trambita, then the base of the Trambita is actually our X-road. And like I told before, my team's main goal is to provide really user-centric services. And when we noticed 2 years ago, or maybe 1 year ago, that, okay, we really would like to user-centric, but we are still providing the services like on desktop, but people really are using mobile phones or smartphones to use services. And we were looking around that who is doing great digital services, and it turned out that it's Ukraine. And we started to cooperate that and also made this pilot project to have our own mobile application. The pilot project was very successful, and what helped is, I think, that the main bases were very similar how data sharing was provided in Ukraine, and that's why it was possible to reuse the code and reuse solution. So yes, we have some examples.
Okay, thank you very much. So that it brings me to the question for Ilya, because you mentioned this cooperation between Estonia and Ukraine, but it's not only Trembita, it's also Dia. That was this, very strong cooperation on the project. And also it's linked to using mobile services because of the situation in Ukraine. I mean, the most common way the services, first they need to be online, and secondly they need to be available on mobile phones. So Dia, not only mobile, but it's a huge project, huge platform. Could you tell us more about it? What kind of services? But also the aspect of cooperation with Estonia, because this is our main topic today, collaboration and reuse. So could you please tell us more?
Yes, sure. So it can be a very long story, but I will try to be short. When we started, we had near 1,200 not digitalized services, and we set very ambitious goals for digitalize everything. One of the most big problem was that absence of biggest part of Ukrainian citizens is absence of culture to use digital government services. And to solve this problem, we focused on daily duty services. So something what our citizens use each day in their common life in general. That was payment for driver fees, taxes, electronic documents verification, share some information important for business process, etc., etc. And that's work. It took near 4 years, and now our digital platform, Dia, and ecosystem of Dia, it's like a common way for cooperation between citizen and government public services. Good example of international cooperation for that period, it's before war, was, for example, implementation of COVID certificates. That was very easy from all sides because from the Ukrainian side we just need to agree with European Union and implement everything based on open source code, which also provided by Euro Commission at GitLab. So just in near 3 weeks we already had a working solution with mutually recognizable documents across whole Europe. Another good example of such kind of cooperation that was already mentioned at Trembita. Yes, Trembita based on X-Road, and for this moment that's like a most common usable solution for communication between government services in Ukraine. It's very fast, secure, and like a relative technological platform. Unfortunately, now we in state of war. War made its own adjustments, and the biggest part of our resources is forced to help to assist our refugees, internally displaced person, inform our citizens about shelters, about places where you can wait time without electricity, without communication, etc., etc. What else? If you are talking about international cooperation, for this time, a very bright example, it's creation of a registry of damaged caused, damaged property caused by aggression of the Russian Federation against Ukraine, which took place with support of the Council of Europe and our partners from the East Europe Foundation. Another good example, it's added Ukrainian digital certificates and authorities to the third-party trusted list in Europe. So you can use digital signature issued in Ukraine for your business in Europe and vice versa. That's also have very powerful economic effect and help us. What's more I can say?
I remember Obywatel, which you can translate to mobile citizen, which is Polish application.
You're absolutely right. Yes, you can share Ukrainian citizen personal data with Poland analog of our application, it's Obywatel, and you will have your personal ID, electronic personal ID in Obywatel, and use it in your daily routine in Poland.
I think these are, powerful examples, especially those that are practical solutions when you need them fast in times of war. So I believe there are more, and especially those that use open source. I have one more question to you, because it's linked to DIA. Like 3 months ago, we received an email from your Deputy Minister of Euro Integration in Ministry of Digital Transformation of Ukraine, informing us that actually DIA, the code is open. And when we checked GitHub for DIA, we discovered that European public license is everywhere there. So what was the rationale of using of the UPL? It's about a bit of promotion for the UPL developed by the Commission. So what was the rationale?
Yeah, we spent a lot of efforts when we choose a license because compare a lot of variants, etc. But the most expected effect of using EUPL is possibility to use the code of product produced for EU state institution in independent project under the GPL license. So compatibility GPL with GPL allows us to mix code under the GPL and EUPL license and change the license code under the EUPL to GPL without additional efforts. And also the choice of EUPL is due to need to bring license into the full compliance with the requirements of the legislation of all EU countries.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. So it's also we are not going to continue this theme, but licensing when it comes to open source is important, and the Commission already long ago developed the UPL, and it's actually mentioned and highlighted in the Act as a tool to use when developing a solution, legal tool, of course, and so.
Yeah, let's move on to some other examples of collaboration cross-country. I saw digital workplace not as high as I thought, but Stephanie, in France, you do see opportunities in the area of digital workplace. You are doing interesting initiatives. Can you tell us more about that?
Yes, of course. In fact, in France, we have a long strategy of using open source. For a little more than a decade, we had a regulatory act promoting open source software to use them, but also to put on open source what administration are developing for public services. This open source can bring standards also, and I will take an example. For example, OpenID Connect is now used as well by the GAFAM, but also for our France Connect in France, and to connect every services. And in fact, we have open source communities that are bringing solutions that we can use for the public sector. But we think now that we have to accelerate And in our new strategy, we accelerate by embracing a maker approach. So contributing to open source software community for specific needs. And one of the needs is digital workplace, because with the workplace coming to cloud computing, that makes a big difference for the state. Before we had license and everything was on premise, and next is coming is everything in cloud computing. If we want to have a sufficient sustainable IT system for daily life for our civil servants, we think that it's good to have an alternative that is under control, as integrity, disponibility for everything, security, of course. And we don't say that that will be the only one solution that we will use, but an alternative that make our more confidence when we have to negotiate, for example, prices and so on. We know that when we are too dependent of technology, it can be very difficult to negotiate or to find alternative. And in digital workplace, we see this risk, and we prefer to have alternatives. And open source software make possible for the state to operate by themselves. And what we are doing is, for example, we have our own WhatsApp in France. That's called CHAP. It's built on Matrix protocol, which is an interoperability protocol for instant messaging, secure instant messaging, that are more and more used. We know that Luxembourg, for example, is using it, Germany is using it. And what we are trying now is to see if we can do that with other countries, other member states, but also to connect, because in the Matrix protocol, what is interesting also, it's just not open source, but it has interval standards, and that will be fine if one day we can also send instant messaging, so secure instant messaging from France to Germany by connecting our nodes. But instant messaging is one brick of what we could call a collaborative suite, and we are doing further. So, for example, we have also based on open source web conferences, webinar. We have also some collaborative edition software, very used, and also, of course, Drive to share project and so on, and also for transfer. And all those needs that has the current needs from every civil servant. And we see also new needs by working between community that are in different ministries, for example. More and more we try to de-silo the work between our administration. They need tools that are also interoperable and with new possibility. We start using GRIST, which is a common that have. It's not exactly a table, it's something different, but we saw in the use cases when we put the tool in the hand of civil servants, they have plenty of ideas, and in fact it answers to needs to collect a lot of information, and as civil servants, in many politics, we have to coordinate, to collect many information, and that meets this need. So that's why on digital workplace, with in the center, in fact, a single sign-on, because that makes the link between all those bricks. We see a place for open source, for reusing open source softwares that are state-of-the-art, and a place also to contribute to the softwares, France people, but also maybe with other countries that share the same goals and the same needs. That's exactly what we are doing with Germany. Markus Richter told about it this morning. We signed an MOU for that, and now we are talking also with other member states. We saw already some interest to do more, and we really think that to have the based tools for our civil servants for the digital workplaces, we need to be more than just France and Germany. So this is also an invitation to contact me or contact Marcus Richter or our teams to work together really as makers, to build very concrete tools. And so we will organize probably in autumn, end of September or beginning of October, a projectathon on that. And we'll be very happy for those who want to test solution and just to exchange on that, to start maybe some more collaboration.
Thank you. And yeah, we take note of your call for volunteers for this collaboration opportunity. And I like that you offer it as an alternative. So coming back to the example of Marcel, you are building a second house just in case the things with the first house are not going that well. So thanks, Stephanie. Monika?
So it might evolve to more formal collaboration, I understand, with more member states than two. This is your hope. And yeah, we repeat the call to representatives of other member states. Thank you very much. Emmanuel, you mentioned earlier some success factors for your country. Huge success in achieving interoperability of public sector because, you know, in our charts, Malta is placed very, very high. And do you think that those success factors could be extrapolated to the EU context? Because we are now talking about, you know, EU interoperability within the EU, not only at the national level.
I think they are, let's say, quite in sync and easily extrapolable to at EU level. To start with, the Commission have established a number of different strategic perspectives over the years with the EIS, AIF, the Digital Single Market Strategy, the European Data Strategy. So from a strategic perspective, I think the Commission are already doing that. In terms of supporting programs as well, I mean, we've spoken earlier today about the Interoperability Act board that will be bringing the different member states together to basically focus on implementing further interoperability. We know in the past it was also the IDA, IDABC, you know, ISA Square. So there's been supporting programs in that regards as well from the Commission. And from a legal basis as well, the Commission has not stopped from basically, let's say, putting forward various legislations to promote interoperability, GDPR, Data Governance Act, Data Act, Interoperability Act. And from a technology point of view as well, the Commission have made a number of different solutions available related to cloud, AI, blockchain, you know, and also funding mechanisms through Horizon Europe primarily to encourage member states to come together and develop further solutions. However, I would say that there are a number of barriers to achieve that. First of all, despite modernization of legacy systems, of business critical systems, there could be some legacy systems, you know, that may be based on older technology or older standards, and it would be present some challenges in terms of alignment and compatibility. Of course, there are organizational and structural and cultural issues. We are all human, resistance of change. We know it will happen. Issues of trust will occur, issues of sovereignty at national level. You know, the other one is semantic and data governance. Despite giving data governance topmost priority at a strategic and even at an operational level, there could be challenges of quality of data, you know, single sources of data, which also present some challenges. And ultimately, legal and policy barriers. We're starting with the same acts, but the way they're implemented in different member states may not be exactly the same in harmony. So that will also bring, so whereas I believe that the critical success factors are equally applicable, the devil is, of course, in the detail and the implementation.
Yeah, I agree, and it's a good point. Yeah, there is like different level of readiness to implement Act provisions, but also since it's about very structured governance and all member states and institutions will be, some institutions will be represented. So the experience will be shared among members of Interoperable Europe board and then also Interoperable Europe community. So the barriers that you mentioned, on the basis of the experience exchanges can be actually lower, probably much faster. But definitely this structure governance should help to lower those barriers and help countries that are, maybe less prepared to take a next step towards full interoperability across Europe. Thank you for your answer.
So, Marcel, question for you. So you have seen cases of collaboration between countries, Estonia, Ukraine, France with Germany. So there is another case also between Czech Republic and Austria. I think you have not been that involved, but still you know something about it. And that was not in the script, but I'm going to ask it to you. What do you think about the call from Stephanie about countries using matrix to communicate and adding more things? What are your views?
Well, thanks for the question, because as a matter of fact and maybe coincidence, I was involved in the negotiations on the Digital Markets Act. And the Digital Markets Act maybe feel remotely to this subject, because that's a legislation that sets rules for the biggest digital companies in the world. But how it is connected with Matrix specifically is that what I have brought to the negotiations in the European Parliament, and that part made it to the final legislation, is mandated interoperability for these big tech companies when it comes to chat services. So Matrix, well, I personally use it, and I encourage everyone to use it, because it's open source software, because it's an interoperable solution. And what the Digital Markets Act says is that these big tech companies have to, in the chat services, provide interoperability if anyone wishes. And now somebody is calling me. Sorry, not really the right time. And there is how it is really interesting when it comes to Matrix, because then if you can connect Matrix with other services like WhatsApp, then of course you are getting rid of this network effect. Because if I ask here, who uses WhatsApp? Who uses Matrix? Yeah, so here you have the answer. The lucky people over there who already use all the benefits of Matrix, but in general, basically, why people don't really change too much the chat platform they've been using is because, well, you have to convince everybody else also.
Exactly, yeah.
And this is going to resolve, hopefully, this problem. And I'm also happy that there is a review clause in there, so the Commission will have to assess that also for social networks.
Nice. I didn't know, but thanks. The Czech-Austrian example, you want to talk about it? Or
Yeah.
Quickly,
So just briefly, maybe, I mean, the question is not anymore on that on the slide, but if I remember correctly, the cross-border projects felt like really important for the audience here, and I totally agree. I would like to mention open source innovation hubs that involves parties from the Czech Republic and Austria, from the Brno region and the Vienna region, where they jointly set up a Fireware hub. Fireware is a middleware platform that focuses a lot on for instance, smart cities, and some part of the project, some of the partners from one side, they focus more on the technical side of the things, training, and for instance, like prototyping, and the other part, that's the Czech side, that focuses more on coordination of the community, partnering, and that part. And what I am really happy about all this is that Open Cities is an organization that is also involved. So I am happy about that, because it's many years ago that I have, again by coincidence probably, co-founded this organization. So they are now involved in this when it comes to the uses of open source in public administration. So even though I am not personally involved, that is really dear to me.
Okay, thank you. Monika, we are running.
But I would like to ask to display the results of next Slido. So we are aware, because you see it on your phones and we see it on the screens, and we have one more round or 1.5 round of questions. But since we started late and one of our speakers needs to really leave sharp 3:30, we would like to ask your panelists to provide us answer, but rather brief ones. So we have a chance to introduce more cross-border projects, examples of collaboration. And we have one also very interesting for us, close to our hearts, because the Commission has to work on it. So we would like to get to that. So the next question was about how do you think the EU can encourage sharing and reuse across member states? And one of the most popular is by developing common guidelines and standards, then by providing funding for collaborative projects. This is happening because actually project that was mentioned by Marcel is funded. It's part of Interreg project. If you haven't heard it, you can Google it, and it's funded by the EU. I think a big portion of it. So of course it's co-funding, and by offering technical support and expertise is the third choice. I mean, all those options are important. So let's see how it is now with our projects, if it's reflected. And we have a first question to you, Stefanie, because we want to hear yet about another type of example of collaboration between the countries. And there's one which we are also involved as a unit and as directorate at the Commission, which is a GovTech incubator. And aims at revolutionizing public sector technology through innovative approaches and collaboration. And when it comes to innovation, it's usually based on open source, so it perfectly fits. If you could share some your views on this project, why, and briefly, please.
Thank you. Yes, it's a pleasure to participate to this initiative, so GovTech for All. In fact, in France, we launched 6 years ago, 6 or 8 years ago, a Lean Startup program for the state, where we took the methodology of the startup, doing it with civil servants that are becoming entrepreneurs. So they are the lead of the team, and we are doing that with a user-centric approach and with iterative approach, also agile method. And we find in this GovTech for All program the same mind, and so that and what we like in this program is that we are doing very concrete projects with several member states and looking for impact. So it's not just sharing best practices or trying to write standards, but more on doing it together and see how the standards is coming by doing it, by making it. I can take an example. I know that yesterday in this GovTech for All forum, we discussed, for example, on a variant from Matrix for the health sector, and we are several countries thinking of doing that, and how we contribute together to have this project coming to production in each countries. But so there are several ideas that are coming on using open source software or developing also specific software that are developed in open sources, and each time looking from a problem to address and how we can reach some steps, step by step, each time having some people, so citizens or enterprises or civil citizens that are happy of the products. And that's why GovTech for All, I think, is a very good example of how we can encourage and reuse open source software, but in a very practical way, and by making together. So I really believe that between member states at the EU level, we can make some products, make some solution, and success.
And this is also funded by the European Commission and under Digital Europe program. So another example of EU-funded initiative.
And by the way, Ilya, Ukraine is part of GovTech for All as well. Can you briefly?
Yes, sure. So last year, Ukraine joined to the European Union GovTech incubator, the first non-Europe Union country which joined it. Our lead product for this incubator is Diez engine. We developed this project in partnership with e-government Academy Estonia. What is it? It's a digital constructor for created rapid development of state public services and registry using a low-code approach. So it means that you base it just on a business process diagram with minimum efforts for writing code, can rapidly develop some public services and push it on the market. Under the hood, it have integration with X-Road Trembita, so it's already using for a lot of our domestic services. Unfortunately, it's not, at least for this moment, it's not yet fully compatible with incubator specification. So our level of compatibility is near 70%, but we work for improving this metrics and believe that in the nearest future we will 100% compatible and push this product to the incubator. That's all.
Yeah, no, thanks.
Since, Marcel, you need to leave soon, and I don't want to lose this topic, let's say, I would like now to ask you about projects that the Parliament supports and the Commission implements. So your party in the European Parliament and EU personally, you are very much involved and supporting always the projects like EU FOSSA and FOSSEPS. We would like to focus on FOSSEPS, which is free and open source software for European public services.
Correct.
Yes, FOSSEPS. And now we have preparatory action. These are technical details. It's more about the content. Yeah. And we are particularly interested about, to talk about the catalog.
Yes. I always also forget what the abbreviation stands for, but this time I have it written. It's free and open source software for European public services. And I have initiated this pilot project that was then approved and implemented by the European Commission because I was thinking at the beginning of my mandate, what we can do actually to improve the use of free and open source software in public services. And I had a lot of ideas that I think kind of also relate to what we see here on the screen, because the project by essentially creating a catalog of software used in public services basically ticks a lot of these boxes. So basically providing funding for collaborative projects, hackathons, tick, promoting success stories and best practices, tick, creating repositories, tick, organizing workshops and conferences, tick. So basically, the idea is to have to first identify the most used software in public services, what is the most critical software in public services. And then, I mean, I spoke in the beginning about redundant work. And of course, also in free and open source software, there is some redundant work, and this aims at avoiding it, because there is a lot of different catalogs of software already, but this tries to connect them and then make it more usable for public services to actually share knowledge, share best practices, and use the software that is used elsewhere. Then basically, if you have something like this that supports the use of free software in public services, then the adoption, of course, will be a lot easier, and we try to avoid, creating yet another thing that does not solve the problem, but rather connecting already existing dots.
So a part of that it's the EU open source software catalog, which we already have MVP developed, so minimal value product. And we onboarded already the data and the solutions from the catalogs of Germany and Italy. And without going to the technical details, there are some limitations when it comes to metadata standard, but we are working on it. And next probably will be France. Hopefully it's French catalogs are almost ready to do it, then other countries. So really there will be kind of central repository, EU repository of open source solutions that they will be also obviously placed on Interoperable Europe portal. So currently join up.
By the way, Monika, I would like to thank Marcel for all these efforts that he has been doing in his role as MEP. Yeah. And I hope you can continue whatever role you will take supporting, because it's much appreciated. So thank you.
Yeah. And then we would like to hear about yet another initiative, and this is global initiative called GovStack. It was also discussed probably this morning in another panel. You might have heard about some details, but we would like to see how Europe can benefit, European countries, and we have a good example because there are some countries that really use GovStack and are involved, and one of them is Estonia. So it's a question to you.
Yeah, actually, one of the initiative started in 2020 in October, and Estonia was one of the partners who initiated this GovStack project. And the aim is to build a common understanding and technical practice and fundamental reusable and interoperable digital components for e-government services. And actually, it turned out that our X-Road is also one of the building blocks of this GovStack initiative. And we so far haven't used nothing yet according to this GovStack initiative, but I know that in April this year we made a new agreement and our ICT companies in Estonia will be more and more involved in these initiatives, and one of the things is EID and wallet building, what will be part of this GovStack initiative. And actually I think that it was previous question that EID might be one of the shared solutions. So yes, there are now some practical steps, not only the initiative what started 4 years ago.
Mm. So yet another example, maybe not that obvious. So we had first GovTech incubator, and now GovStack that are maybe not that well known, but it shows that we have plethora of options to actually collaborate. And the Act will impose other ways of collaboration. So I need to cut it short here and go to closing our session. So again, since Marcel is just about to leave, just last question. You can take microphone and speak, when you go to the exit. it's about the future. So how do you envision the near future, let's say 2030, when it comes to sharing and reusing solutions between member states, taking into account that we have the Act, which mandates and forces certain type of collaboration? And what kind of developments or changes do you foresee, and what are the challenges we need to be prepared for?
So the devil is hidden in the detail, and I think that the challenges that are in front of us is represented by some sort of an ambiguity that is in the Interoperable Act, and the challenge is to really interpret it in a way that we implement interoperability by open source first. There is a challenge how to really look at the viability to use of open source, because if we look at it from a really strict perspective, then it may actually be damaging for open source. For instance, if you say, well, I am open to use free and open source software, but it has to perfectly match the functionality of some already existing proprietary product, then you're never going to use any free and open source software solution, because you never have, from a certain level of complexity, two very same functionality matching products. So by that you can, by mistake, basically easily completely exclude the use of free and open source software. So I think we need to change the mindset a bit, and I think cultural mindset was one of the answers to one of the questions, what are the barriers? Because, well, the nice example over here is the use of Matrix. I mean, it would have been maybe much easier to use some other product hosted in the US, or even completely proprietary. I don't want to use any particular names of products, but you can imagine that it could have been much easier, but still the French administration has decided to go a way that maybe in the beginning was much more difficult, but in the end leads to a solution that is cost-effective, that brings digital sovereignty, brings security, and in the end also brings interoperability, because, as you said, it's also used on the German side, in Luxembourg, and this may easily spread. So I think, this is the challenge, to realize this, and if we overcome it, I think we have a bright future ahead of us.
Thank you. We've totally changed mindset across Europe. Thank you. Thank you very much. I understand that you might need to go, but I still have 1 minute for closing, and or maybe question for you, Stephanie, because you are closely working with us on, future implementation of the Act, and as you know, we will have guidelines on sharing interoperability solutions. So, what do you think? Which aspects are the most important to be covered by those guidelines of sharing interoperability solutions?
I think, in fact, that those guidelines has to be really inspired from concrete work that we will be able to do together between member states and not disconnected from it. By making real products based on digital commons like Matrix or GRIST or other digital commons, we will see what is important also to write in those guidelines. One thing also is the way we are elaborating interoperable products, and I really believe also to meet the complexities that we can have in the different states to address the problem with IT, is to be able to start small and at the same time to be very ambitious, But it's not always also in the mindset so easy to do that, because when you develop IT for state, for ministry, you want to specify everything, and it's not always possible, and it's more and more not possible at all, because IT is moving, environment is moving, technology also with AI are moving very fast. So I'm quite convinced also that in those guidelines, putting really very area that it's very good to experiment, start small, each time having a proof of concept with real users is a key for success, and success also for having interoperable solution, and also solutions that will be robust in the time, because in state we need also perennity, so IT systems that last quite a long time. So,
thank you very much. And really, one sentence from you, Emmanuel, main takeaway from you from this discussion?
I mean, it's very important that we continue to share experiences, to streamline processes, and to develop innovative solutions. But one thing that, of course, is important, I think, is let's keep it simple. Let's be practical. Let's not expect that it will happen overnight. It's already took years to reach where we are, and it will take, I think, years to achieve where we want to be.
Thank you very much. And unfortunately, we need to finish. We started a bit late, so actually you are perfectly on time, but we need to respect the rules and also give you time to go for a coffee break. So thank you very much. Thank you for sharing all the info and your experience and insights, and especially information about the projects that show that we are not starting from scratch. We have a lot of experience about collaborative projects, how to do them, that there is a variety when it comes to mechanism that we can use. So this was the goal of our session, and from now we need to build more, we need to cooperate more, and we need to build the interoperable Europe that is based on sharing and reuse. So thank you very much, and now I invite you for a coffee break. Please visit the exhibitions if you haven't, our exhibition and our stands, that if you haven't done it yet. And see you back at 4 for the next session, which will be in the same room in Copper Hall at 4 p.m. And there will be a high-level panel on making the Interoperable Europe Act from vision to reality. Our viewers, our audience online is also encouraged to stretch a bit and have a coffee and join us later at 4. Thank you very much.